Hello. I wish over the years of making music, I made something maybe more appropriate for this show with the kind of like pre-intro music. This is something I made messing around with. Again, I lived in a warehouse for a number of years in West Oakland that people were recording and rehearsing in. And I worked there as well. And there was this just beautiful voiced woman one day, and I had this idea, and with this thing that you're hearing, or kind of maybe you can hear a little bit, was just something put together real quick with a singer, more R&B focused singer. So that was the fun part about living in that warehouse. And if I had one thing to do over, if I knew then what I know now, it would be to make more chill stuff like this. Maybe, I don't know. But hello and welcome to another episode of Pop Life, brought to you by the wonderful people of This is Revolution Podcast. If you're new to the channel, welcome. So glad to have you with us. If you are a returning listener or subscriber or one of our very valued patrons, hell yeah! Thank you again for joining us for this early afternoon stream. If you've seen the very busy show calendar this week, then you know we're working overtime here at TIR. That said, This is Revolution is totally listener funded. And since we have a no holds barred ethos, many of our shows are sadly demonetized. That said, if you appreciate what we do here on TIR, have the means, and want to make sure we can continue to do all this, become a patron for as little as $3 a month or $30 for the year. You get access to champagne rooms past and present. Join us for our champagne room call-in shows, and you can make sure we can continue to bring you quality program, or as close to quality programming as possible. Now, let's get into the subject matter. We here at This is Revolution delve into the rich tapestry of music history and culture. Today, we're honored to have with us a distinguished guest, David Garfield, a virtuoso keyboardist, songwriter, and producer whose career has been intertwined with the evolution of a genre often labeled as yacht rock. This term, though initially pejorative, refers to a sophisticated blend of pop, rock, jazz fusion, and funk that flourished in the late 70s and early 80s. David Garfield emerged from the vibrant Los Angeles scene, collaborating with an array of exceptionally talented musicians. If you are a TIR patron, then you know we played some of his stuff with Karizma in the Champagne Room. And YouTube took that show down because YouTube sucks. This collective crafted a sound that not only pushed the boundaries of pop music, but also resonated deeply with the experiences of a maturing baby boomer generation. As life presented new challenges, marriage, parenthood, loss, and divorce. This music provided a nuanced soundtrack reflecting the complexities of adult life. In the post Vietnam War era, as the fervor of civil rights movements began to wane, there was a noticeable shift in musical themes. The anthemic tones that once dominated gave way to more introspective and cross genre explorations. Soul music began to intertwine with other styles, leading to the rise of adult contemporary music. Influential groups like Kool and the Gang, Earth, Wind and Fire, and the latter works of Stevie Wonder played pivotal roles in this transition. Arguably, Michael Jackson's Thriller epitomized this fusion, seamlessly blending rock, pop, soul, and R&B during the waning days of monoculture. However, as the music industry transitioned into the MTV era, the visual aspect of music consumption became paramount. Artists whose appeal was primarily auditory found themselves sidelined in favor of those who could deliver compelling visuals. MTV's youth oriented programming favored the synthesized sounds of new wave bands like Duran Duran, leaving many grown folks musicians, including some of David's contemporaries, struggling to adapt. This shift prompts an intriguing question. Is Duran Duran's Rio fundamentally different from Toto's 4? Today, we'll explore the intricacies of the music industry during the 70s and 80s. Drawing from David Garfield's extensive experience, we'll delve into his numerous projects, notably his supergroup Karizma, and discuss the myriad artists he's collaborated with over the years. So sit back, relax, join us as we embark on this exploration of music history, industry evolution, and the enduring impact of a genre that continues to evoke both nostalgia and appreciation. Please welcome, coming all the way live. So excited to have this guy here, David Garfield. How are you?
Great, man. Nice to be with you.
I'm pretty stoked to have you. I was very nervous reaching out to you. I was overjoyed. I believe when you wrote me back, we were streaming, and I think I was like, guess what? one of the behind from the groups.
Oh, that's cool, man.
How did you get started? What was the first thing you heard that kind of took you down a certain musical path? Because the styles of music that you play and that you work with today, kind of, there's a wide range of it. I know you work. Do you still work with George Benson?
I stopped touring with him in about 5 years ago, but we're still good friends. In fact, I'm writing a song for him right now.
There you go. I mean, does it get any cooler than that? So what, are you a jazz guy first? Are you an R&B guy? Are you a blues guy? What's the first record you hear?
It's going to sound so interesting to you. I grew up basically with rock and roll. My life, paralleled, like when I was young, we had a stereo system. We had a mono system, hi-fi and they introduced stereo, so my whole life has grown with the development of audio,
Mm-hmm.
When records went to stereo, I remember being fascinated by that. And early on, my parents listened to all kinds of good music, but as kids, when the Beatles came out, Tijuana Brass, those groups became very interested in all that stuff, and was a total rocker. Whereas rock was very progressive music in the late 60s. I lived in the New York area. And they would be long jams. I always liked the improvising and the jamming. And it didn't take long for me to kind of find my way to jazz through rock and roll. And I got into jazz, and that became my passion in high school, And we had moved to St. Louis, Missouri, which is a really great jazz town. And I was very fortunate. I met really cool people, but jazz was really how I started my career when I started playing professionally.
Did you have programs at your school to teach music?
You know, in 1970s, early 70s, jazz band was an extracurricular thing.
Okay.
On Monday nights, we would go to the school. There was no credit whatsoever. My parents to drive me with my drum set. I played drums at that time, and it was totally non-academic. You know, it had extracurricular. Ironically, I went back to that high school recently to do a workshop, and they have like full-time classes in jazz band and ensembles. But you know, it was just a passion. Some of the neighboring schools had programs too, and in the next school over, they had a small group workshop on Tuesday nights. Our jazz band was on Monday nights, and I quickly eventually joined the college lab band and played piano with them. They were probably on Friday nights, you know, so
Mhm.
always doing something. This is like back in the 70s. I don't know if people realize what it was like back then. No internet, no cell phone.
Well, I asked the question if your school provided something because when we think about these musicians, first and foremost, like we'll get into the how technology has changed the way we record and even play music. But there was a time when schools had music programs, and there were bands that were formed out of the school music program, like Confunction from the Bay Area. That's born out of a school music program.
Wow.
Um, as these things, and I mean, like I said earlier in the introduction, I lived in a music rehearsal recording studio in West Oakland called Soundwave Studios. And one thing that I noticed in my time there was that I never really saw young musicians come in too often, because younger people can do everything at home, singularly, which it is what it is. I'm not going to be an old man yelling at trains right now, but there's something about, like you said, jamming, playing with other people that not just helps you with your chops, but helps you develop the ability to write songs. So
I'm
what was it like when you're a young guy and you're and if you St. Louis is a serious jazz and blues scene, like a serious, so you're messing around with some hardcore heavy hitters.
I
So
was very lucky.
you're a young guy coming in there trying to show your stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I was very lucky. I mean, I was 16 and I was playing the drums. I wanted to be a drummer, but I always played the keyboard. I always had an ear for chords and melodies and like to jam on the keyboard, figure things out. And I was hanging out. We met these musicians from the inner city
Mhm.
that were professionals, a little older, and uh, you know, I wanted to work with them on drums, but it turned out they needed a keyboard player, and they said if you had an electric keyboard, you start working with us. So I decided to sell my drums, buy a Fender Rhodes, started working with them that Friday night, and I've never stopped since. That's
Wow.
a very unconventional career. I didn't go to college. Um, I learned from these guys. They took me under their wing. We played in North St. Louis. I was the only white musician, and they just were so great to me. Like they kind of mentored me. There was a lot of these musicians had played with some of the greats. You know, they knew
Mhm.
Miles Davis and Clark Terry and a lot of the big names. But I can go on and on with the stories. I don't know how much time we have, but I got 50 plus years of stories. But I'll tell you what happened in St. Louis was I learned how to play real jazz, and this is what I want to say.
Mhm.
I have a passion for improvising, and that's what jazz is. You know, you go to the symphony, and I just saw the LA Phil like a week ago. They're amazing, but they're playing everything exactly written,
Mhm.
and they're reproducing it, interpreting it, whatever. But improvised music is what I'm into, and I'm a huge, follower of Miles Davis. And he led his band. So there was a band called Weather Report. You familiar with them?
Yes. Yes.
I got to see those guys live a lot back in the day, and I got to play with Jaco Pastorius.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was a trip. He sat in with us on our band with Karizma. But the thing about it is I just love interaction. And see, this is you hit a nerve already because I go off on these. I kind of have a spiel that I go on about collaborating because
Mhm.
I have to do a lot of collaborating with people that live like in other cities through email and web. But there's nothing beats being in the room with another person, just like you and I are talking right now in real time.
Mhm.
Magic happens when you connect with other people. That's what I believe.
Yes.
So back in the day, we would go in the studio, like our second album, Cuba. We did it all live. We did live to 2-track, which means
Ooh.
we have to perform it.
Yeah.
The engineer had to get all the sounds in the mix right, all at the same time.
So they're checking for levels before you even hit record when you're doing it like that, right?
Yeah,
You
we
gotta
do
make
like a
sure.
run through. She's checking out the routines, and
Yeah.
then when we do the take, maybe the first day he goes, "Oh man, we got to do one more on the guitar. It got a little hot, But but what it is we're performing all together, and that's the magic, So I play a lot these days around Los Angeles, and actually, I'm fortunate. I'm going to be doing some gigs around the country. We're doing Nashville, Miami, Detroit. It's kind of cool, going a few different places. But yeah, that's what underneath everything we talk about is I'm a big believer in musicians jamming and collaborating and connecting in real time. That's where the magic happens.
Oh, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Speaking of that magic, when do you leave the confines of St. Louis to relocate to sunny California?
I was very lucky in 1974, after I started my professional career in St. Louis. Things were kind of dying down, and one of my buddies there was a percussionist, and he was moving to LA, and I had met a couple of guys in LA, and I said, "Well, can I go with you?" It was just like spur of the moment, and he said, "Sure." So boom, I came out to LA in October, first week of October of 1974. Got out here on a Thursday. On Friday, we went to the Lighthouse because I had always been hip to the Lighthouse where, Lee Morgan and Miles Davis and all these people had played. Saw John Clemmer at the Lighthouse on Friday, asked him if I could sit in. He laughed. I was like a punk kid from out of town. I was like, "Can I sit in?" Like, and then Friday, and then Sunday, I started working. It was amazing. It was a miracle. I started working 3 nights a week with a great band. And so it was kind of a what do you call it, Cinderella story. Like I really got lucky, and then some of the people I knew were great, and they had great connections. And as we grew, one of them was Carlos Vega, the drummer who played in my band Karizma. He became one of the top drummers, and through my relationship with him, I met all the guys that later became Toto. I mean, it all was happening in real time. We were just, and like this whole yacht rock thing, before all that, the Japanese and the Scandinavians have been huge fans of our music, and they call it West Coast. They also call it AOR. I've seen in the chat some things.
Album-oriented rock, yeah.
And they also call it adult-oriented rock. But what it boils down to, it's just people are trying to make good quality music. That's all it ever was. Like, you hear a song on the radio like, Funky Town, right?
Yeah.
Or Boogie Oogie Oogie. We were always trying to up it a little bit, and you'd hear a song like "What a Fool Believes," and that was just trying good chord changes, good melodies, good hooks, complicated structures. All we ever were trying to do was make good quality music and up what was on the radio. That, I believe, that's what we were trying to do.
I think you guys nailed it. And going back and listening to this with more of a critical ear and listening to all of the different genres that are combined. And then I wanted to go back and kind of listen to how this evolution starts. And, no one really has a button to say we're all starting from here. But there's this moment where certain people are getting a little older, like Stevie Wonder no longer being little Stevie Wonder,
right?
And kind of becomes the Stevie Wonder that a lot of us know him as, Inner Visions, Songs in the Key of Life, Stevie Wonder. That to me is, and also the later years of Marvin Gaye, like the 70s Marvin Gaye, What's Going On, stuff like that. This stuff is really pushing even that kind of doo-woppy stuff out of the Motown sound is done by the time Stevie Wonder grows up.
It changes, it evolves. Okay, so I have to tell you this one story.
Please.
You mentioned What's Going On. I work a lot with Smokey Robinson. Smokey was in the room with Marvin when he wrote that.
He wrote a lot of those songs too, right?
Pardon?
Didn't Smokey write a lot of those Motown songs too, didn't he?
Oh, Smokey wrote tons of Motown hits, but Marvin was one of his best friends. He was in the room while Marvin was showing him what's going on, and Marvin was saying like, "I think this is some other stuff," like they knew back then. Like, can you imagine that? And they just wrote the song. That's been one of the theme songs of our lives. It never gets old. But you mentioned so many important things. Songs in the Key of Life was a big turning point for me. And my buddy Greg Fillinganes was on that record, and before he joined Stevie, we met in LA, and then he joined Stevie, and he was a part of all that. And I watched it all go down in real time. And it was just, once again, Stevie, as a kid, was interested in jazz. Stevie's an amazing jazz player. I don't know if you saw the Grammys this year. He played blues he killed it with Herbie Hancock. But Stevie was always interested in jazz, and he wanted to have more control of his music. So with Songs in the Key of Life, he just knocked it out of the park, And so you look at a record like that, and you look at like at a David Foster record or Quincy Jones, Just Once, or Body Heat. Are you familiar with Body Heat?
Yes.
That was a game changer. I think that was one of the biggest changing points as I recall, in the landscape. It was in 74, 75. I wore my record out. I know people that bought the record twice. And I say record because we were listening to vinyl back. But the thing about it, it's so cool. People now are discovering this stuff. They don't quite understand, because it's like, let's say I know people that have their whole life have had iPads, or their whole life they didn't believe they had to buy music. But back in those days, you bought a record, it was a big deal. It was a lot of fun to crack it open the first time, listen to it, discover it, to go on a journey. But I'm just saying, where I'm going with this is, I think, honestly, you look at you mentioned R&B, rock, jazz. It's all coming from the same well. I mean, it's just music.
It feels like there's this time, and I'm glad you bring up the whole buying a record. I am still old enough to remember going to a record store, buying a cassette, or listening to my parents' records, or my mom, whatever record she had, which was like a lot of 70s funk stuff. And this is back when you can get vinyl records for a couple bucks, if it was even $1. You might be able to get them for 50 cents back in the early 90s, because records it was like a thing for DJs only, maybe. And I found a lot of this music. Some of it was still played on radio, but through liner notes of rap cassettes that I bought, where they would show where the music came from. And I would read the liner note. Oh, who is this Steely Dan? Let me find out who these people are. And that sent me down a bit of a rabbit hole that was a little more affordable, but buying music was an event, and listening to that thing that you bought was also an event. And we do a show here where we go over one entire year of every release that we can find for that year. And we just kind of go over that year of music. And there's a few years of music that have really stood out for me. And it's 82 and 79. Like some of the stuff that comes out in those years, it's wow. Especially when you think about kind of how complex the bigger records are, of like a year like 82, right? Thriller and Toto 4, Duran Duran's Rio. I don't have the list in front of me. I think Prince releases no, that was 1999. I think it comes out in 82. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on, because you can still get a budget.
You can make money on music. You see, that's what changed. 1978-79 was the year, believe this, music industry grossed more than the movie industry. Can you believe that?
I can. So much great stuff came out.
It was 1 year, because the whole movie thing kind of like started going down, as far as creativity and cutting edge. and the music was up on top. They made more money in music that when it was either 78 or 79. And then you had Star Wars and a lot of these movies, and the movies thing became huge in music. And it was disco was going on, and then punk. There was all these, I'll kind of digress, because I've lived in this world. The business, I feel, did a tremendous disservice to music, because I've been like in the bathroom at the Roxy listening to at a showcase, listening to record execs talking in the bathroom, and I can hear what they're really saying. And it's like all they ever cared about was what was going to sell. They just jump on the next thing. Boom. This is going to be big. Let's put that. This is going to, like I personally have a lot different idea about music. Like I don't create music based on the money. I create music based on the music. Fortunately, it's made some income, which it's just a different, what do you call it, business model. But the music business kept changing every year, what they're focusing on. We're going to push this. I remember when Springsteen was new and they were going, Springsteen, he's going to be the guy. We got to move on. And punk, and then, rap. So getting back onto the music, I'd say in the early 70s, you had people like Herbie Hancock, you had Chick Corea, you had Stevie Wonder, so forth. You had Quincy Jones. You had all these people out there just trying to make great music. And of course, they had the goal of selling and being popular too. You had to try to commingle it. And so what happened was, in the studio world in LA, you have all these studios. I mean, it was a thriving music community here in the early 70s. There was so much work. It's ridiculous. Different levels of work. There were so many echelons. Besides just records, there was demos, there was publishing demos, there was TV, film. And so and showcases. So where I'm going with this is that you had this community. Everybody's just trying to be good. David Foster was a keyboard player before he produced. He's a little older than me, but he was one of my contemporaries. Patrice Rushen, 1 year older than me.
Patrice Rushen, my goodness, yeah.
Man, if I could tell you, it's funny, we're talking about this. I remember being in the room when they were rehearsing Forget Me Nots, when they were just, I was in the same room that Toto was, it was the next room next door when Toto was rehearsing Rosanna. I watched all these things being written and rehearsed, and then I heard them recorded. I was rooting for them to be successful when they came out on the radio. But where we're going with this is it's just about trying to be great musicians. So you had people trying to be great, want to make good stuff. And then what they would do is they would get called to go into the studio. This is how we had our studio world of the session players. They just aspired to be really good, like Jeff Porcaro, for example.
Yes,
amazing drummer.
Yeah.
People loved him, so they'd call him in. He'd get called for Pink Floyd. He'd get called for Bruce Springsteen. He'd get called for Ricky Lee Jones, whatever it was. And go into 10cc. And that was what, and was, he'd go in and play on DJ Rogers or Ike Turner, and then play on, a rock record. See, we didn't see music. These genres we saw no genres. It was just music. This was a little funky. This one was a little sexy. This one was a little energetic. You know what I mean? So fusion was a bad word that was ascribed to us mixing all the genres, putting rock with jazz. But in the beginning, like when you saw a band like Herbie Hancock perform with Headhunters, it was mind-blowing.
Well, that's kind of, again, I was one of those guys that lived in one of those places.
Exactly. You were in the Bay Area?
In the Bay Area, yeah, in West Oakland. So
full of music. I just see somebody put George Duke in the chat. George Duke played with Frank Zappa, and he played with Cannibal Adderley. How opposite can you get?
When you're in these environments where sound is blasting out of every room all the time, and again, living there in an environment where 3 o'clock in the morning, if I have an idea, I can just start going for it, full stacks blasting. And if someone is still walking around, because definitely people were always moving around at all hours of the night, as you can imagine in these environments, they'll come on. What you working on? Oh yeah, that sounded good. And that for me was always the motivation. If one of the big timers would knock on the door, what you working on? Oh yeah, it sounded good. And be like, oh, okay, we're working this, whatever we're doing right now must be pretty dope. So I know it's pushing you as well when you're in these rooms. So how what was going through your mind if you're getting called to do a job where they want you to arrange something or plan something, and you just left and you heard Patrice Rushen putting down Forget Me Nots and Toto 4 is going off, maybe they're working on Thriller, you're like, man, what are we gonna do to push the limits? Is that your mindset when you're getting in the room?
It just comes natural. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think about it. I just hear music,
Mm-hmm.
like recently somebody posted on YouTube a concert I did with, I was in a band in the 90s with Steve Lukather from Toto and Simon Phillips, who's an amazing drummer, and John Pena, called Los Lobotomies. We did this tour, and we did a lot of touring in 1994, so that's 31 years ago. Somebody posted a concert we did in Italy. I was watching and I was like, damn, we were really grooving, man. This is really good. And I thought that I wrote these songs with Steve Lukather, and I've never performed them since. And I was like, I should re-record that. Immediately I start getting an idea for an arrangement. Like, I just hear it,
Mm-hmm.
I'm very lucky. I feel like I feel very blessed. Like, I didn't study in college, and I took a minimal amount of private lessons.
Oh wow.
I just loved music, and I wanted to play with people. And so I play with people. I'm also a director, because I directed my own bands. And then, like with George, when I became musical director, I really got a lot of feedback about my musical direction. Because, I mean, it's about being in touch with the artist, knowing when he wants to do something, cueing the other people, leading it, being confident. And so when I do my shows now, that's what I do. I lead the band. I'm like, here's where we're going. This is what we're doing. One time I had a thing go down. It's kind of a weird little story. Thing go down at this one place I played, and I pointed to the sax player, and the guitar player started playing. And I was like, I didn't want that. And he had his eyes closed, and he's a great guitar player. He's going crazy. And I just couldn't get his attention. And I realized, well, when that happens, you got to go with it. But, we're back to this thing about yacht rock. It came out of this era, and forget the title yacht rock. That was that's kind of a funny name that they put on Mike. I think it had to do with the sound of Mike McDonald's voice. Mike McDonald is from St. Louis, where I'm from.
Oh, I didn't know he was from St. Louis.
Yeah, he's actually from Ferguson. He went to Ferguson.
Is he really from Ferguson?
Yeah,
Jesus.
McClure. And he learned in St. Louis, because there's great R&B in St. Louis. A lot of the white musicians in St. Louis that are really into music learned from the R&B. Like, for example, Ike and Tina Turner came from St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you knew that. They invented a dance called the Imperial, because they played at the Imperial Room. There's like this St. Louis history. And so David Sanborn, the saxophonist, you're
Mm-hmm.
familiar with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And David was from St. Louis as well. They all emulated some of the great St. Louis players. And so Mike had always had a thing for soul and R&B. And it was said that he did an incredible rendition of Ain't That Peculiar, the Marvin Gaye song. So when I was doing the tribute to Jeff, I saw somebody mention it in the thing. Mm-hmm. When I was doing the tribute to Jeff CD, which I did because Jeff was a good friend, and I'm a good friend of the family's, and I wanted to do a good job on that project. Somebody else would have done it, and it would have been possibly not as, not in great taste. But I'll tell you about that later. But because there was a lot of people that wanted to capitalize, do corny things. So I was doing that project, and I was going to have Mike McDonald sing "Ain't That Peculiar." And then we got closer to the session, and I had been listening to Let's Stay Together, Al Green, a lot at that time. Somebody gave it to me as a present for my birthday, a compilation. And I just said, man, I wonder if we could do Let's Stay Together. I love that song. I always loved it. And it was in St. Louis, we did a lot of Let's Stay Together and Love and Happiness. Those were two songs. If you didn't play those songs, you got beat up. And, I'd say, can we do Let's Stay Together? So Mike sang Let's Stay Together. We didn't do the Marvin Gaye, but guess what? after our record became very popular, Mike's song, he got approached to do those 3 Motown albums. I don't know
Really?
that. Yeah, he did 3 Motown albums with some British, I forget, it was a British producer approached him. Some of the guys in Foreplay played on it, but they were huge successes. And I think that they got the idea from our song because it was such a great fit, him singing, a soul song, you know what I mean? And they call it Blue Eyed Soul. But, let's face it, man, people love good music. I mean, it doesn't matter. I've been privileged my entire career to play with mixed bands of mixed ethnicities, people from Puerto Rico, from Cuba, even we call the British guys, they're their own ethnicity, and so forth.
Well, that's for me. Look, I played a genre of music that no one would traditionally call black music, right? And definitely, we've done some shows and had some interesting conversations on ideas around quote unquote authenticity, especially when it comes to like who wrote certain songs back then, who really sang on a bunch of stuff, who really played on stuff back in the day. Do you really care? Blah, blah, blah. But there's this moment where all you guys are in these studios together and you have this, heterogeneous mix of people, right? Multi ethnicities, different class backgrounds, and people are coming together to make dope stuff. That's the bottom line.
That's what it is.
Make dope stuff. And no one's going, this is, I mean, they're definitely industry people, right? That say this is black music and this is this music and this is that music.
Yeah, I hate the genres, man.
And that to me is where I think these guys that want to talk about this music that you did, why I don't like the term yacht rock, and I'll tell you, this is my own personal beef, brother. I don't like the term because number one, you're looking at album covers of a different time and fashion. And I think most people look at music, especially if you're around my age and you think of youth, and you forget that this is an era where the teenager is still a relatively new thing and marketing is following the teenager into adulthood. So there's artists that are reflecting that demographic, which is the demographic that you want to market to. They're buying all the products, right? So musicians look as such, first and foremost. Number two, black musicians, for the most part, are kind of eliminated from the genre. Maybe they throw in George Benson, but all the James Ingrams, all the Patrice Russians, who definitely fit into the genre, don't get mentioned because that's that music and that goes over there. And then by the time MTV gets into the picture, they are pushing a bit of a youth movement. They want to be rock. So this stuff that isn't so guitar oriented doesn't get the MTV plays. Like What You Won't Do for Love. I can't think of his name right now.
Bobby Caldwell.
Bobby Caldwell. There's a video for that song, but if you're black in my age, you probably never saw it. And you've thought Bobby Caldwell was a black man your whole life because you only heard it on the radio.
Oh, man.
The
stories I could tell you, man.
Go for it.
Oh, it's just, but I mean, you're hitting the nerve because I never really spent too much time thinking about the business. But as we're talking, I'm realizing, the music business that's filled with people that wanted to play music, and then it's filled with people that love music, and it's also filled with people that want to capitalize on music.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like in that movie, Straight Outta Compton, have you seen that?
Yes, I have.
There's a scene in there where this one guy, Jerry Heller, who is a music business person, decides he sees the dollar signs, and it's just, I mean, we've been living with this music. We have a lot of jokes about it. I have a little thing in my studio that Frank Zappa said it's really derogatory about music business people. We have jokes, we have stories. But what ended up happening with me is I ended up with my own record company by default, by accident. Like, you know, it's kind of cool actually. Now I do whatever the fuck I want, you know. I mean, pardon me for swearing. I only do it when it's important.
Please swear. It's a swear-friendly show.
But I mean, I do, you know, I do what I want. I don't ever go like, well, that's too much this or that's too much that. I just had a song out. My last release featured Herb Alpert on trumpet. He's 90 years old.
Damn.
He was kind enough to play as a guest, to help me. He did it as a favor, you know. What do you call it? Pro bono, and did a great job. And that song's on the radio. It's on what they call Watercolors, which is a Sirius XM channel, which is smooth jazz. There's another name for you that I hate. And then my next release coming out is under the blues category, blues rock, and it features Martin Barr from Jethro Tull. And
oh damn,
I mean, it's like you know, I get the joke. I mean, I play music with anybody, and you know, I mean, I'm not big on country music. I mean, I like it, but I'm not well experienced in it. But I go between pop, rock, funk, jazz. You know what I mean? And like when we were with George, he wanted to do Wichita Lineman. He really wanted to. Somebody just wrote had yacht rock influences. So what the thing about yacht rock is there is no such thing as yacht rock. What it really is we were studio musicians who wanted to play high quality. And so you look at Steve Lukather from Toto, high quality player. I was in the band with him. Eddie Van Halen, who played on Thriller, also played on a couple songs with me. We played live.
Word.
Oh yeah, he's on 2 of my songs.
Word.
Yeah. And he used to call me up. I get the phone. Hey David, it's Eddie Van Halen. There was a time period he liked to call me all the time. But hey man, you know, it's like this is what I'm saying. It's like even Van Halen, who you would think is more on the rock side, but we can all play together. We all kind of dug the same stuff. I always said this: there's 12 notes. There's 12 notes, 4 beats to the bar. I mean, and I love music. I mean, I go sit on the piano right now and I play Duke Ellington, or I play Paul McCartney. You know, it's like Stevie, or it's just notes and melodies and harmonies for me, which is what my passion is. So, I mean, you know, I don't have anything against people talking about yacht rock. My new video on my channel is about one of our songs that's on the yacht. I don't know if you saw it.
I saw it, and I just want to say that song has been on heavy rotation. I shared it on Twitter the other day because I was like, this song, I can't get it out of my head. But a couple weeks ago, I was in your hood. I was in Los Angeles at the Rainbow, and a friend of mine who I played with in the band I was in before called Bitter Lake, he is now playing in an industrial metal band, and they were playing LA the next day. So he had a day off. We hadn't seen each other in a while. I drove up, we're hanging out, and I'm talking about you. And I'm talking about this music, and he digs it too. We both dig all the same stuff. And so I send him the song, and he's like, oh, he's a guitar player too. He's like, oh man, Lukather rips, man, that tone. I love the tone. And we're getting all into the intricacies of the changes you guys have. I feel confident saying this. I still would love to be a fly on your studio wall, because I want to hear what's going through everybody's, or not. I want to hear what people are saying. Does a cat come with a riff and you guys go off that? Do you have everything kind of all worked out and people add their own flavor on it? How are y'all putting music together for your own personal project, Karizma?
Well, let me tell you about that song. I've Been Played the Fool Again. It was on our first album, and it's on our official David Garfield YouTube, little documentary about the song. I wrote the song as an instrumental. You know, just like I was telling you a little while ago, I got an idea, sat down at the piano, and kind of it's like cooking. You put it, you make the dish, add a little of this, add a little. Oh, that's just right. We were playing that on our gigs, and then I wanted to add vocals to it, so I found a vocalist, and he wrote his own lyrics and melody to it.
Oh, he wrote the lyrics to that.
Yes, yes. In fact, the way this particular singer that I had on the first record, James Felix, he's a very great musician. He wrote so personalized that it was hard for anybody else to sing in his place. He wrote it very stylized to his own voice.
Yes.
And he was very talented. I think he was with Tower of Power for a while. I think he auditioned for Toto at one time when they were looking for singers, but didn't get that. But he's on our first album, but we had different singers over the years. It was always a controversy because some of the guys in the band didn't want vocals. And I always wanted to bring in vocals because I wanted to connect to people. And I know that, like, I'm doing a show here at the Baked Potato a week from Friday, and I've got a vocalist just going to do a few songs each set. I don't have to have a vocalist, but I think it makes it a more dynamic performance for the audience. Like, they're digging on us, jamming, and drum solos and guitar solos and all this great stuff, and funk and Latin and fusion. And then vocalist comes up, and all of a sudden now we're doing Let's Stay Together.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we jam on everything. I have these shirts that say jam, and that's always been my handle because that's what it's about. And so when you're playing live, so here's another thing. It's interesting that we're going to go on this path. Several years ago, I got asked to do something with Michael Bolton for a Tonight Show. And it was the first time I had done something where you know what Pro Tools is, right?
Yes, I do.
So it was the first time I've ever gone into a live situation, even though it was a TV show. They had a whole Pro Tools rig, and they had the entire album at their disposal.
Jesus.
And so I was playing the keyboard, and somebody else was playing this, but then they were missing this thing. They put it up in the mix from Pro Tools. And I thought, oh, this is kind of different. Well, then from that moment on, it's become a very common thing that a lot of bands, Eagles, lots of bands, most all of the big pop bands, Beyonce, all those people, they've got somebody running either Digital Performer or Pro Tools under the stage, and they've got all the tracks.
Yep.
Because they want it to sound like the record, But personally, I like jamming. That's what brought me in to music. Like I was telling you in the beginning, a lot of the early rock and roll, the psychedelic rock and roll, they were just trying to be like American jazz players, and they were jamming. And I'll tell you a funny story. Horace Silver, the great jazz pianist, he was like my adopted father. We hung out for quite a bit here in LA, and we went to an event at the House of Blues. All the big blues guys were up there. John Mayall was one of them, and they were having a panel discussion, and people kept asking questions, and Horace and I were sitting at the table. They finally said, well, we were listening to him, and they pointed to Horace, and they said, and I actually think Horace invented the word funk, by the way.
Okay.
He had a song called Opus de Funk. I think that's the first time the word funk appeared. I believe that's true. And Horace, they said, we were trying to listen to American jazz. They were getting Blue Note records. These British rockers like Clapton and Jeff Beck and all those guys, John Mayall, they were listening to American jazz cats. So once again, it's just my love is improvising and jamming. But if you get too self-indulgent with it, you can lose the audience. Here's another story. George Benson told me that when he lived in New York, and this is in the 60s, he would go to the Vanguard, and Coltrane would be playing with Elvin Jones, the classic Coltrane band, McCoy Tyner, Elvin Jones. They were playing. The first set would be packed to the walls, and then the second set, there'd be 6 people. George said nobody could hang with the intensity. Like they after the first set, they were, And so this is what I'm saying. Like when I do my shows, I jam a lot, but I also, I don't get self-indulgent. So it's a nice mix between, pleasing vocals or arrangements and improvising. So that's trying to get back to the point of the yacht rock and studio cats and all this. If you look at a list of the people in LA that play this music, who would you name? Like you can say
Oh
Patrice
well,
Weston, Greg
uh,
Finnegan's, David
yeah,
Foster, um,
Lukather,
Steve Lucas,
Caros.
Carlos Vega, Jeff Porcaro, Harvey Mason. Remember Louis Johnson?
Who was the cat that played guitar on those Gino Vanelli records?
Mike Miller.
Is that his name?
There's a few. Carlos Rios.
That's who I'm thinking of.
Carlos Rios.
Was he one of you LA guys too, or was he somewhere
Yeah.
else? He was an LA guy?
Lives right down the street from me, man.
That dude's a beast.
Oh,
that
man.
We've been bumping. Again, on this show, I've been in a bit of a zone with 70s and 80s this music, right? That Brother to Brother record.
Sure.
To me, as a heavy music player, when I got hit to it on accident.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this lead is the most metal lead I've ever heard in the history of metal leads. Mm-hmm. That dude's a beast. So if you see him, say there's a cat in Mexico that thinks you're a beast.
Carlos Rios is from his family from the Dominican Republic. He grew up in Torrance. I have some great stories about him when we were on the road together with Tom Scott. But check this out. He currently tours with Stevie Nicks.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, yeah. If you go to see Stevie Nicks, you'll see him on stage. He's very low-key, and you'll see Waddy Wachtel as well. But you go back to this list of players, and you throw in Carlos Rios, Larry Carlton, Dean Parks, Lee Ritenour, Michael Landau, Michael Thompson.
Yeah.
Keyboard players. There was a guy, Michael O'Mardian, who did all the Christopher Cross stuff. David Page. You know what I mean? And so you go to the bass players, Freddie Washington, Nathan East, Neil Stubbenhaus. I said Louis Johnson, the brothers Johnson. You remember that?
Yes.
Louis Johnson played on a lot of the stuff for Quincy. Yeah, I think he played on Give Me the Night, George Benson, stuff like that.
Did he?
John Robinson, the drummer. Oh, yeah. I'm a record credits person.
That was one of the early records. Again, my parents' record collections. That was one of the early records. Was the Brothers Johnson?
I feel old now.
And Thunder.
I just got old. But dig this.
I played that record out. Yeah.
With my music right now, we have this whole series outside the box. I'm on all the streamings. I don't know if we can put my links up there in the chat or anything, but
I actually, wherever you're watching or listening to this show, everybody, there's a link in the description that leads you right to David's website, where you can get all of his music and see all of his tour dates, which is the reason why I tried to hurry up and book this show and do a special stream in the afternoon, because I looked at your tour dates and I was like, this guy's going all over the planet, so he's probably going to have crazy rehearsals.
Yeah, man. And so I see somebody in here that says, does Tool use Pro Tools? Are you talking about the band Tool?
Yeah, they're talking about the band Tool,
the drummer in Tool, Danny Carey, is playing with all of my friends. I haven't met him yet. I'm going to have him play with me in the near future. He's doing something with King Crimson or something like that right now.
Oh,
but you see, you put this all together. You take prog rock, okay? You take all these music. It's really, I'm telling you guys, all we wanted to do was be great musicians. And so you look at, I think I see Hall & Oates there, or James Ingram, or I mean, it was always about just wanting to play high level music. And so we wanted to raise the bar of what was on the radio. That was always the big goal. Like, can I make a record for the radio that's hip? And and everybody was trying to do that. And some people, I mean, I think Africa Toto was a great example of that. That's a very cool song. I mean, I was there when they recorded it. I know a lot about what went into it. They used tape loops to create that percussion thing. They actually had long.
Oh wow! They literally had cut the tape.
It had it spread out with the mic stands going through.
Okay.
Yeah, so they had it was and but that song is probably their most successful song, and but I mean it's high edge, the chords. I've recorded it. I had one version. I recorded it with Mike Porcaro, the bass player from Toto. We did a live concert, and on my version, David Page is on my version, and so is Steve Gadd, the great drummer, and a lot of great people. Bobby Kimball, he was on my version. So I mean, there's a video of Greg Fillingane's parts of Rosanna. Cool. Yeah, I mean, Greg's playing with Toto now. Yeah, I also have a version of Rosanna. Check out those two things on my Mike Porcaro Brotherly Love CD. Very proud of them. On our version of Rosanna, we took Lukather's solo and we revoiced it and made it in 4-part harmony on the guitar, 4-part harmony. There's another guy, Jay Graydon. He was an LA guy.
Yes.
And so, I mean, he produced George Benson's. He co-wrote "Turn Your Love Around." And he produced. He produced "Turn Your Love Around" for George. He also produced "Morning" for Al Jarreau.
Ooh.
But you take Al Jarreau, George Benson. What are they? George Duke, David Sanborn. Just throw us all in the same place.
That's my problem. That's my problem, Mr. Garfield, with the naming, trying to fit everything into a category, right?
Yeah.
Because this is also when you guys are releasing records, sadly, we're really stuck on racialized categories. So if you're black, it's just black music. Even though the players on this stuff are going to be on different charts. Yeah. Right? Like, why is Toto on different charts than Thriller?
You're hitting a nerve with me. Have you heard of Hazel Scott?
Mm-mm.
Oh my God, man. Are you in for an awakening? Okay, so let me tell you this. So you're hit a real nerve about the race. Let me just get something up on my TV. I'm so lucky to have been taken under the wing of great African-American musicians. I mean, I'm so lucky. Let me see how I can find this. I got to tell you, it's on PBS, and this will blow your mind. And I didn't know who Hazel Scott was, and somebody told me this just a few days ago. And she was actually ended up married to Adam Clayton Powell, who was a congressman from Harlem.
Yes, the Adam Clayton Powell.
Yeah, well, that was his wife, and they had a son together. It's called American Masters. It's on PBS, and it's called The Disappearance of Miss Scott. Now, this Hazel Scott was mentored by Billie Holiday, Art Tatum, Duke Ellington, and Teddy Wilson, Fats Waller. She is an incredible piano player. Alicia Keys mentions her. Alicia Keys, it'll all make sense to you if you check it out. I don't want to burn up all your time, but I got to tell you this because this goes right to the race thing. She was the first African-American woman or person to have her own TV show. And she was amazing jazz virtuoso, pianist and singer. I had never heard of her until this week. And I watched the documentary, blew my mind.
Yeah, I'm looking her up right now.
And she got blacklisted because she was pushing for integrated audiences in the late 50s.
You know, the irony in that is like, kind of, aren't we all still pushing for integration of audiences, which is why I like doing this show. I'm a rock metal guy, but I love so many different kinds of music, and I love to have these conversations where we can kind of interrogate these issues, which one of them is the sin of that era is only one record, maybe two. Let's just say Lionel Richie's Can't Slow Down gets a little bit of a break in the early 80s as well. But when you listen to all this music, you're just jamming, you're rocking out. I was dancing in my house the other day. I was listening to Katie Lied.
Oh yeah.
I just let it play. Right. I wasn't doing anything else.
Right.
I was sitting and letting it play. And I was like, damn, this is a damn good album. And so I wanted to, before you came on, I wanted to do this thing. I wanted to listen to the number one stream. Right? Everything is about streaming now, which also changes the way you digest music because it's just free. And so you don't care what it sounds like. And so I put on the number one streaming artist, and I can't remember the name of Tate something. Can't remember the young lady's name. But when I put it on, my first thought was, it sounds like anything I heard between 1998 to 2005. And then I put on Thriller because I wanted to see if there's a difference. And when you put on Thriller, it still holds up. It really doesn't sit in a time for me. Bad does.
Right,
Follow-up
right.
sounds like the late 80s, early 90s. But when you put on Thriller, I don't know what it is. Maybe just everything clicked for those guys in a way that it's never going to click again.
It's a piece of art.
But for that time frame, it got no better. Michael happened to be the right age. He was about 25. All these musicians come in and do some great work on that record. And then he gets to make music videos with the top directors at the time. Remember, Thriller's made by John Landis. It was coming off of big movies like Caddyshack and stuff. So he's like the only thing that gets through. And then when he gets through, he kind of jettisons all this crazy fusion stuff. What happens to a lot of you guys after 82? Maybe even after 84, maybe that's even a bigger year, 84 for the rise of video consumption. Are you guys still doing studio sessions a lot? What's going on?
Yeah. There was a lot of work going on. We had people coming from Italy, artists, South America, Japan. We had people would come to LA to record. And I did quite a bit all through the 80s and the 90s. Actually, in the 90s, a Japanese company gave me a deal to do 8 albums,
Jesus.
my own label. And then it was around early 90s, things started to kind of slow down. And then we did that record for Steve Lukather with our band Los Lobotomies through his deal with Toto. It was with Sony. We did that record, and then we toured for the all 94. And we were very lucky. I mean, we're always playing live or recording, working for other people. I think, I started working with Boz Scaggs a bit here and there. There's another guy for Yacht Rock, Boz Scaggs. But let me go back to Yacht Rock for one thing. Sure. I think what it boils down to is that as the group that liked the music got older, that became kind of like a way to kind of handle, like yuppies or, what it got. It was kind of a way of distinguishing a certain generation of people. But here's the thing. We were talking about black music, and it really hit a button with, like, we're talking about the Hazel Scott thing, is that they did separate black music and white music, right? We know this. There's so many shows and documentaries about all this. Have you seen the Stax documentary, the most recent one?
No, I haven't seen the most recent one.
This is a must. It's a must. Oh my God. CBS put them out of business when they were doing well. It cut off their distributorship. I mean, wait till you see, because they had Isaac Hayes and all that. They were winning Academy Awards and everything. It's a messed up business. It's full of really a lot of creepy people, but the music will carry through and above it. And so what I'm getting at is you had people like Ray Charles. They used to call them race records. You know what I mean? Yep. But they overcame that and they surpassed that. And so over time, the music always surpassed all this bullshit about genres and limitations. So in the end of the day, all all the white audiences and music lovers, so love black music,
Mhm.
and try to get rid of these barriers. And like we're talking about, this music is kind of like, look at, you had Hall and Oates up there on your backdrop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're probably trying to sound like Philly grooves.
Mhm.
And then you have James Ingram, I love James Ingram, he's from Ohio, by the way. He told me that when they wrote Yamo Be There,
Uh-huh.
they researched, he told me this, I swear, I love this. They researched this groove. Dum, ba-dum, dum, 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 and they said it get about 8 or 9, 10 songs with that groove. And
Mhm.
one of them is I Can't Go For That.
Yeah.
Well, they used that groove for Yamo Be There.
Oh.
I mean, there's nothing new. It's all how you use the music. Like there's nothing brand new, but there's stealing and then there's being creative.
Yeah.
Smokey told me that in the studio when they were working on something, and I wrote this song with Smokey called "One Like You." I encourage anybody that wants to hear it. Say the guy asked, and Michael McDonald trying to sound like Bill Withers. No, they're both trying to sound like somebody else older.
Fair enough.
And Donny Hathaway is trying to sound like Mahalia Jackson, by the way. That's what Donny
Oh, interesting.
is. And when George Benson sang on Broadway, he was channeling Donny,
Really?
Oh yeah, this is the way it goes, And the fact that you didn't know that means he wasn't copying him. It means he was being inspired by him. And all the great painters, they were always influenced, composers, everybody was. Now dig this. I was trying to get to the point about Smokey. One Like You is the song I wrote with Smokey. We wrote it for George Benson's record, Songs and Stories. George recorded it, but and both of them are huge Jackie Wilson fans. That's the other thing. But the thing about One Like You was I was recording it with Smokey for the demo, and I was playing the chords, and all of a sudden I said, "Damn, these chords." I'm thinking to myself, the chords sound a little bit like "Ain't No Mountain High Enough," and it was just a coincidence. I never, just kind of. And then we're in the studio. Then once Smokey said, "Take it from the Ain't No Mountain High section." Said, what? And then I said, "Man, I was tripping." And he goes, "Oh man, David," he goes, "Don't trip." He goes, I was trying to get a hit song with the Temptations. I couldn't get a hit with the Temptations, record after record after record. And then I finally got this idea based on a Curtis Mayfield song. He goes, he named the song, and my engineer immediately knew what he was talking about. And he goes, and I kind of used that song as my kind of inspiration for this Temptation song, and it went to #1. So that's how that shit works.
That's fucking like I said, man, the whole thing is insane. Again, thank you for taking the time to hang out with me today. This has been an honor. I'm going to try to get up to LA to see you guys if those tickets aren't too expensive.
Which gig? The Potato?
Yep.
Oh, Gussie Miller will be singing with us. He's Marcus Miller's cousin.
I mean, I had no idea. I just saw that you were playing there. I was like, this probably, if I could get up there, that looks like that's going to be a bunch of fun.
Oh, yeah. And we're doing a Karizma 50th anniversary show on the 29th at the Big Potato. I haven't posted it yet. That's going to be kind of stellar.
Is that invite only or is it open to the public?
No, it's going to be, it'll go on sale, but it'll be a lot of members, multiple members from the 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to tell you, we got to do this again. I really, really enjoyed talking to you. There's so much to talk about.
Yeah, man.
You know,
man. Like I said, I love this genre, or I shouldn't say this genre. It's not one. It's a lot of things. I just love this music, brother.
Yeah, you call it whatever you want, because in the end of the day, I got to get up on stage at a special tribute for Stevie Wonder once, and it was Stevie playing the motif, Herbie Hancock was on a Rhodes 88, and I jumped up on acoustic piano. They were playing Another Star, which George Benson actually did the da 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 da. That's George singing. And Steve was going, George! But George had already left. And I started playing salsa, and I saw Stevie kind of go, turn back. I'm like, I say, you heard me. It's like, it's all mixed up. You know what I mean? It's like, and when we get together, we're all comfortable with each other. And so, you know, I just thank you for supporting the music. I really enjoyed talking to you. And yeah, keep in touch with me, and maybe we can do this again. But I want to tell our listeners, black, white, it all is supposed to be together. I've had a blessed life with these great people and great people.
Well, again, wherever you guys are watching or will be listening to this show later in its audio only format, there is a link in the description to all of David's music. Go out. Some of the Karizma stuff, is all the Karizma stuff on Spotify now, or just some of it?
Everything. The only thing that's not up is that Candyman Los Lobotomies. And if you listen to my recording of the tribute to Jeff of E minor shuffle, that's Katie lied. Black Friday is what we did. We did a different song, but with the Black Friday beat. I think you were mentioning Katie lied.
Yeah, man. I did literally right before I started this show. I put it on in my living room, and I'm getting ready. I'm turning everything on, and I'm like, all right, I'm in the right headspace.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you one more thing. We have time for one thing.
Yeah.
We played the after show music up in Vegas for this CES convention many years, my band. And we always play after the big concert. They'd have John Legend, or they had George Benson and, you know, Diana Ross. This year it was Stevie Wonder. And we finished playing late at night, and I went out to the bath, packed up my equipment, went to the bathroom, and then there was Stevie Wonder sitting outside the bathroom with his two guys, you know, his handlers. And I thought, oh man, I want to talk to Stevie, you know. And so I waited for him to come out of the bathroom, and I said, Stevie, I'm David Garfield. I played the music after your show. And he grabbed my hand and he went, you guys are good. And I realized that he listens. That guy is listening to whatever's going on. You know, that's his paradigm. So while his people were all talking and hanging out, he was listening to the music. And so, yeah, good music is going to prevail thanks to people like you and your fans. And I see Dr. Claw. I wish I could talk to you all, but next time, okay?
Well, no, I'm serious. I want to have you back. I want to talk to more cats that made this music, because I need people to understand why I don't like the term.
Yeah.
And I really want people to know how insanely talented and how complex the compositions you guys were making, how you were pushing the limits of what we call pop music. Yeah. Again, listen to, if anyone doesn't believe me, please go to Spotify and go Google the top streamed artists, and then go listen to anything that was number one in 1981, 80, 82, 80, 79, 78. You'll kind of be, I think, blown away by how music is maybe devolved, which is saying a lot considering how much evolution we got as things like multi-track recording came into play, guitar pedals came into play, synthesizers came into play. This is the moment where all of those things are being pushed as far as you can push them. These guys are like, 24 tracks, it's just not enough. So go back, listen to this stuff. I believe I put it in the chat. It's my I call it Music You Missed, or What the Hell is Black Yacht Rock. It's a playlist that's probably about 10 hours long of a ton of music. Definitely a lot of stuff that you played on, David. So again, I want to send you the biggest shout out that I could possibly give. I'm being totally serious. I want you to come back on the show.
My pleasure. I really enjoyed it, Jason. Thank you so much.
All right. Take it easy, brother. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
That being said, I will be back in like less than 4 hours. I'll be back here. And we'll be talking with Eric Blank about labor organizing. We'll be back to the not fun stuff. I'm just kidding. It's not necessarily a fun show. Very informative show. Really great book. There's a link to that book in that show's description. But yeah, wherever you're watching or listening, there's a link in the description one more time to David's website. Please check it out. On that note, I'm out. And let me find the outro music. Oh, here it is. See you guys in a few hours. Peace.